Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time it is in your area. If you are watching the replay, please leave me a comment with hashtag replay or just replay and say hi so that I know that you came by. And yeah, so for me, it's 7 p.m. because it's always the 7 p.m. for me on Mondays, which is 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific. If you are listening live right now, please just say hi in the comments. Please tell me that you can hear me. And please tell me where you are signing in from. I am signing in from beautiful but cold Vienna. Bonjour, Connie. Sweet to have you here. Nice. So I guess you're hearing me right now. Yeah, I'm very cold. I'm wearing 2 layers of jumpers because this door behind me is broken and has been for like 10 days. And I've been speaking an inordinate amount of German already to get it fixed. I do have an appointment on Wednesday to speak some more German and hopefully get people to fix it. But in the meantime, it's really cold in here. So, yep, the outfit is because of that. Salut, Scott. So sweet to have you here. Right. So I'm glad that you're here. The topic today is how to learn French smoothly and how to stay motivated and consistent, or should I even say motivated with inverted commas. Scott is signing in from Quebec. Great, perfect, super, as we say in French. Yeah, so and how a coach can help you learn French even if life gets in the way and no matter what happens, because yeah, 2021 is starting very strong on the no matter what happens. The events have been a little bit crazy already, like from the very beginning of January. I asked on my Telegram channel just today, how is it going with the New Year's resolutions? And most people are like, eh. And it's also the case for me, I have to say. So today I have planned 3 tips or topics that can help you with that. And I'm also preparing a much bigger workshop because this is a topic, how to stay motivated and make progress consistently is the topic that has been requested by the French Fluency Accelerator students for February. So I'm already preparing a workshop with lots more input for that. We will be like, yeah, I think it's probably going to be 2 hours long, to be honest. I'm looking at it, it's looking like the one about manifesting. If you're in the French Accelerator and you've seen that, I'm trying to not get it too long because that one was really, really long. But yeah, in the meantime, I have some notes ready and we can just get started right now. And Connie is in Michigan. Yes, I think I remember that, that you're from Michigan, which is cool. We do have a lot of people from Michigan that are either working with me or in some of the groups or in some of the courses. This looks like a really sweet little state. So without further ado, the first thing that is important to keep into account when you are learning French or doing anything that would require some amount of motivation is that you have to expect the ebb and flow kind of situation. Motivation is going to fluctuate if you want it or not. And if you are trying to have it not fluctuate, it's going to be a rough ride for you. I have seen some people who just get super motivated about French and they go, yes, I'm going to study French for 2 hours every day from now on. And yeah, let me tell you, it never goes well. Either they get bored, it turns out to be not as fun as they thought it would be, or just life gets in the way, they have more work than expected, or their kids, something with their kids happen or whatever, and then it completely breaks. And the worst, this is basically the worst thing that you can do. The worst thing that you can do is to overestimate your motivation or think that how motivated you are right now is how you will always be motivated. I'm kind of talking for myself right now because it's a problem that I've been having a lot. I tend to think that the way that I'm motivated right now, the amount of motivation that I have, is always going to be the amount of motivation that I have. And then I plan my upcoming days expecting the same amount. And either I have too much plan because I have expected a really larger amount, or sometimes I'm just not very motivated when I do the planning, and then I planned a lot less than I could actually do. And that's, yeah, it's something to learn from. So if you've observed that, like, tell me in the comment if you have had that kind of experience as well. You have basically to expect the ebb and flow. And I hear for some people, they can actually plan when they're going to have the ebb and flow. I'm not that advanced, I guess, in my own personal growth, or maybe it's a personality thing. I cannot plan it. So the solution against that is to have ways of studying or learning or ways of doing French, it's really, I always insist about the French life and having a lifestyle that includes French. You need to have ways that adjust for different levels of motivation. So on some days you'll be like, yay, I will learn so much French. I'll learn all my verbs. I'll learn all the vocabulary today. I'll just do like this super difficult exercise, or I'm just gonna go out and speak French to everybody, or like I'm gonna go on italki and get on a call with someone and just speak French for 2 hours. You will have some days like that, and it's great to have a plan for this kind of level of motivation. But you have some days where you're going to be completely flat or just not a lot. And what you need is to not stop on those days, but you need to have a plan that will adjust to your level of motivation. So if on some days you can't do anything more than listening to French music, good. Like, you don't need to be putting immense amounts of motivation and drive into your French study. What you need is to have French as part of your life, no matter what. So if that means that it's going to be music, or you're going to have a podcast in the background, or you're going to have just French TV on and not even watch it, perfect. You need to be also able to include French in your life on those days when there's no motivation, where you can't get anything done, or maybe you have done a lot already in the day, but now it's the evening and you're tired and you have not done anything for French. It's okay, and in fact, it's a good idea to crash in front of a French series, or just do anything that doesn't require any of your active implication, right? It's perfectly okay to zone out. You know that I often share that at least 80% of your French learning is subconscious, because at least 80% of everything you do is subconscious. To be honest, with learning a language, I think there's more than 80% which is subconscious. But the whole idea is that you don't need to engage and put a ton of willpower all the time. It's much more important to have French as a part of your life, and to have different plans for different level of motivation. So it's also one of the things that I do as a coach to help my students just not beat themselves up or not feel bad when on some weeks they haven't been able to do their homework because they had too much work, or the homework was too hard for some reason, or whatever. It's like, the job of the coach is not so much always to push you, but also to learn to adjust your life in a way that it works. So that's the end of point one. I think we have some questions already, which is cool. Let me read that. Is it like a mindset that learning a language is ebb and flow, that is reality, and be at peace with that? Well, yeah, absolutely. And it's not just learning a language. This is true for everything. Any project that you have which includes self-improvement. I mean, I know, Scott, I know that you have a daughter. I'm sure you wouldn't expect her to be always completely like learning and getting like the best grade every day, even on Sundays. Like, sometimes she has to take a break, and it's true for adults as well. And this is true for everything you do. This is why you normally don't work every day. You have the week and the weekend. Well, maybe not you because you're a nurse, but you have days off, and that's normal for every activity. So yeah, if you have a mindset that you should always be go 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 go, I know it's kind of a disease we have in our society. We just want to always be on. That's not possible, and it's setting us up for failure if we expect that. So it's really important to understand that. And also, it's not how much intensity you put in. Like, what you put in is not necessarily what you will get out. The intensity you put in is not the amount of language you'll get out. Very often, it's actually the opposite. The more relaxed you are and the more playful you are, the more you will learn. So that's really important to take that into account and to shift your mindset around that. If you think that you have to work super hard to learn, that's likely to work against you rather than for you. So I hope that answers the question. Connie is saying, I've been stressed because the USA is being unruly. Yeah, I saw that. I stayed up until 4 a.m. my time last week, seeing that, and that's not something I do. I always say that I don't watch TV, but now I watch NBC, like whenever something weird is happening, like on the day of the election, I did that too. Yeah, that's terrible. So anyway, that's not our topic, but yeah, my sincere condolences, as we say in French. I just really share the pain with the US right now. So I've done the French bath daily, but not the vocabulary. I did just get a grammar book to learn the basics. Hey, cool. What grammar books did you get? I know that I always recommend this one. There are books that are good also for, especially written for English speakers, but in my experience, this one is great because it's progressive. And so it's also the one I recommend in the French Life Launchpad. I know you're a student of the Launchpad, Connie, and in the French Accelerator where Scott is. So that's a good book, which you can even, like when I coach my students, I tell them which pages to get first so that they get the most out of, depending on where they're at. But if you're just starting, you can actually take them in the right order, like starting with, the first one, the second one, and so on. That's the one you got. Okay, cool. Hello, Segun. Cool to have you here. So yeah, thanks for the questions. I do have 2 more points, but if you have more questions or more input, please feel free to type away, and I'll stay on as long as we still have questions. So the second thing that I have, so the first thing is to first basically accept the ebb and flow and make a plan for your ebb and a plan for your flow. So make some plans for when you have energy and plans when you don't have energy, that you can do the French bath and just not really care about the results on those days. It's more important to have French around than to even consider what you're actively doing, because the active doing doesn't bring that much compared to the passive study anyway. And the second thing I have here is to have guidance rather than let yourself be overwhelmed and lost. So I have already made a video about overwhelm that was on the New Year's. So it's probably listed as December 31st, but that was the one over the New Year's with the fireworks in the middle. I know that some of you were there. So thank you for following me. That's really cool to keep seeing you. And so we have that in that video. I don't want to repeat everything because that was a lot, but basically it's important to have a holistic approach and to take into account everything in your life. Do not try to wrap your life around your French study. Like, it would be a terrible idea to sign up for a French class, like a huge French class, and then try to arrange your life around it. Like, your life is going to resist. Your life exists as it is for a reason. Very often you have a routine and you have things that you've been doing every day or every week, which are very crystallized. And if you try to change all of that to adjust to a French study, the French study will lose. What you need is to consider your life how it exists and enter the French study here and there. So for example, if you drive a lot, I know that people in the US tend to drive a lot, maybe not right now because we're under lockdown, many of us, but most of the time if you drive a lot, it's a good idea to just have French in your car instead of English, French music, French podcasts, or whatever. I know that I share a lot of podcasts and videos on my Telegram channel, so if you're not there, well, please join me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just leave a comment. I'll give you the link. It's also somewhere in the group, but if you need the link, just tell me what's Telegram or what's the link. There's also there's a tutorial on my YouTube channel that explains that as well if you need it. So you can find it, and you can also ask it if you don't have it. So anyway, I often share music, videos, or podcasts just so that you have some French that you can listen to. And that's very important to just take into consideration how your life exists and add the French inside of your life rather than try to force change, because that doesn't work this way. So it's important to find what works for you. That's also the whole point of basically the entire method that I use, whether it's with my one-on-one clients, with the French Fluency Roadmap, with the French Life Launchpad, and the French Accelerator. I've based that all on the idea that you want to exactly understand what to learn and then adjust it to your life. So I hope that makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling on this one. Let's move on to point 3, and then I'll be happy to answer some more questions if you have any. So the last thing I have is to, the best thing you can do is to have French as a way to self-care. That could be a bit weird, especially if you have been having a need for learning French because your life requires that you learn French. You can be like, no, the French is like the opposite of self-care. Self-care is when I have a bath and I think of nothing, or I watch something in English. I get it. For some people it will be difficult, but the best thing you can do is to have ways of dealing with French that are good for you and enjoyable. So a simple way to do that is to follow, for example, YouTube channels on the topic that you like. If you like, for example, cooking, you can find cooking shows on YouTube that are in French, and that can be a very nice, enjoyable thing to do. And I do have some clients, for example, who request specifically not to speak about the news during the session, and that we speak only about topics that are enjoyable. Maybe sometimes they are complex, but it could be like, for example, I have some clients who like to tell me about the shows that they watch on TV, for example, series. And that's actually extremely difficult because it always requires, or most of the time it requires vocabulary that's very specific, especially if it's a historical show or if it's a show about a topic that I'm not used to speaking about. But that can be a way of having like your bubble, your time that you spend with your French coach could be the time away from the rest of your life, which is very enjoyable when the news are hectic or when your life is otherwise overwhelming or stressful. You can make your French study into like a bubble of self-care, or of, doesn't have to be self-care, it can be care with others, but make it like this really safe space. I have this method in 4 steps, which is selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice. There's a YouTube video about that on my channel. It's how to learn French for beginners. The last step is safe practice. And it's very important because if you're stressed out or anxious, it will be a lot more difficult to learn. So you can make a very good combination if you make your French study into some moment which is like a bubble and a nice, safe environment. It will not only help your French, but it will also help your mindset and your attitude and your situation in general. That's also the reason why I've created French learning meditation tracks, for example. You can find 2 on my YouTube channels. I'm considering making yet another one for the French Accelerator this month because I found something that works really well and I kind of want to share it with you guys. And yeah, I make those tracks because they work for me, and I've gotten great feedback from them that they just really, really help be more anxious, be less anxious and more relaxed, and also learning French because of the subconscious programming that's in there. And finally, second part of the step 3 is to avoid judgment and avoid judging yourself. It's sometimes the biggest fear, or one of the biggest fear of French learners, is that they're afraid that if natives hear them, they'll get judged. I'm not gonna lie, that happens sometimes. The best thing you can do if you're at the situation where you're not so sure about your French skills yet is to study in a space that is safe, and especially don't judge yourself, because you're almost always the harshest critic that you can have. People tend to, when I say people, I mean French learners, it's probably the case for everybody. It's definitely the case for me for German. We just tend to underestimate our level drastically. So for example, whenever I say this is for advanced learners, nobody will feel that I speak about them, even though I could quote by name several of my students who are advanced learners and who would be getting this particular part of piece of content. So for example, if you're listening to me on Telegram, sometimes I go like, yeah, this is rather for advanced learners. And I'm like, no, wait, I mean intermediate, like people who've learned French before. And that's because you tend to underestimate your level and to judge yourself and think that your French is really not good, even though it is actually better than it is. I'm not saying that because I want you to feel better for no reason. It's just always the case. It's something that has been observed by probably every single language teacher and coach and every single language learning researcher in the world. If you want, I can tell you a little anecdote that happened to me that hopefully will convince you if you've never heard me say it. So that was back when I was living in Berlin with my ex-wife. I think that was just after we got married. One of my friends, Luke, came to visit, and he's from Canada, and he was living in Switzerland at the time, and he just came to visit us in Berlin. And Luke and I speak Spanish. We've both learned Spanish. It's not our best language, but we can speak it. And my ex-wife speaks no Spanish whatsoever. And in Berlin, you don't have that many opportunities to speak Spanish unless you seek them out specifically. So since he was there, we decided to go ahead and have a conversation in Spanish. And so we had a chat in Spanish for 10 minutes. And my ex-wife doesn't speak any Spanish. She's German. And so she asked, after the 10 minutes when there was a blank in the conversation, she asked, okay, what just happened? And Luke, my friend Luke, told her, what just happened is that Angel speaks amazing Spanish and I suck. And I was completely blown because and very taken aback by what he said, because I was like, wow, I felt that your Spanish is great and I was struggling. So we both were feeling that the other person was speaking Spanish better than us. And there was no reconciling the discussion. He was sure that I was better at Spanish than he was, and I was sure that his Spanish was better than mine. And that's very typical. You can have this experience if you speak in a foreign language with another person for whom it's also not their native language. You can have this experience a lot. It's just normal. So that goes to say that you're probably underestimating your level. No matter how good you think your French is, it is probably better than you think. So cut yourself some slack, make sure you have a plan for your ebb and a plan for your flow. So don't always assume you're going to be super motivated. Always have something at hand, like French music or a French series, or just some sort of like feel good French stuff, or if you're not motivated. The only thing that's really bad when you're learning French is to just quit or give up altogether. Like if you stop studying, or if you stop having anything French around you, if you stop engaging with French and you stop speaking or listening to French, that's how you're not going to make progress, and you're actually going to regress, because your brain will think, yeah, okay, so we're not speaking this language anymore. I guess I'm just gonna like put everything at the back. By the way, you never forget. Like I know I have some people who come to me and they're like, oh, I learned French 20 years ago at school, but I've forgotten everything. That's not possible. For example, if you have been fluent at some point, like I know that at some point I was fluent in Portuguese. If you would bring a Portuguese speaker to me right now, I probably couldn't have a conversation with them. But if I were to warm up for maybe 15, 20 minutes with some Portuguese content, then I could be able to bring that back. Also, I'm a polyglot, so that helps. If you haven't been doing any French for 20 years and you just want to get started again, it might take a little bit of time to ramp up, but you never forget. Your brain never forgets anything you've learned, short of having brain damage. That would be a problem. But if you haven't had physical brain damage, your brain doesn't forget. It just makes the knowledge less available because it thinks that it's not very necessary right now. So it can take a little while to warm up and become available again. It's a situation that I often have in my one-on-one session with students. When I have people who have studied French in the past, especially the distant past, when they were teenagers or young students, or who have lived in France in the past, when we speak in the sessions, suddenly they start saying words that they didn't know that they knew. I don't know if that sentence just made sense, but basically my client will just speak and they make a wonderful sentence and they're like, wow, I don't know where that came from. And the sentence, whenever that happens, the sentence is always correct. It's not like they're making stuff up and it's wrong. It just pops out like that. And I'm like, well, I know where that came from. You told me that you've been studying French when you were younger, and you remembered it from that time because your brain just picked it back. And you were not thinking about it for all these years because it didn't feel relevant to your brain. But now that it is back in your life, your brain is able to pull the information. So that speaks strongly in favor of keeping some French around you, even if it's just passive practice or passive study, or just passively having French around you, because that tells your brain that it's there, that it's one of your languages, and want it or not, it's going to stay in your life. So the most important thing is to just not give up. If you feel you're not doing anything when you're listening to French, you're just going to have to take my word for it until you get the proof for yourself, because you're always doing something. Even if you're not engaging, even if you're not understanding, it always has an impact, if only just to take the French fresh in your brain and tell your brain that not to put what you've learned aside. So I hope this helps. If you have any question, I'm happy to stick around. I've been rambling for 24 minutes, so that's time for the Q&A now. By the way, I've put the link in the description of this video if you want to check out my one-on-one coaching program. I'm accepting some new coaching clients right now. I have 2 or 3 spots open, depending on whether the clients will get the small package or the large package. So yep, if that's something you're interested in, please check it out. We have a comment from Connie. I listen to and enjoy French podcast. It's conversational, and I listen to the rhythm of the conversation. It's relaxing for me. One day I listen again and understand it. Yes, this is the perfect attitude you want to have. So it doesn't matter if you don't understand it. It's great that it's relaxing for you. So that means that's something you can use for your ebb days, for whenever you're not super motivated. And I would be really ready to bet that you will actually start understanding more and more as you go. That would be something interesting. Sometimes you're just listening kind of passively, not really paying attention. And that's when the meaning starts somehow popping in your head, if that makes sense to you. Tell me if that makes sense. There will come a time when you realize that you understand some things, even though you're not even trying. It's a really cool experience to have. Question from Segun. After the French bath, how many hours should one actively learn French in a week or a day? That definitely depends on your goals. So I can't really give a blanket statement for that, because that depends on what you're trying to do and when. If you're trying to achieve an exam, what are the reasons why you learn. So please give me more input, because it's difficult for me to answer a blanket statement. I typically say that it's good to spend 5 minutes on your vocabulary notebook. Oh, by the way, I have a new thing which is called the French Fluency Starter Kit. And in that starter kit, there is a special resource that explains to you how to use the notebook. Let me find the link because that will really help. French Fluency Starter Kit. Let me try to put it in the comment like here. So this is a collection of 7 resources. One of the resources is these live hours, so there's another 6. But one of them being the vocabulary magic, it's called. So it's how to use a vocabulary notebook. I recommend that you spend 5 minutes a day at least. It's better if you have 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the evening, reviewing the vocabulary that you've put in your notebook. So not writing new words, but actually actively reviewing the vocabulary. And it would be good if you could at least spend an hour either having a conversation with a teacher or having a language exchange conversation. For example, if you check out the French Transformation, which is my coaching program, you'll see that there's an option with 1 hour with me and an option with 2 hours. And that's not the only, like, I want to insist, because when I tell people that it's just 1 hour per week, they'll think that it's the only thing they do. No, like that's the time that you spend with me, where we target your study and we practice French and we see where you're at. But you're supposed to be doing your daily French bath every day. Also, you have the recording of those hours, so you'll be able to listen to all the French that, basically you'll be able to listen to your session again, and it's just your one-on-one session, so it's perfectly tailored. And you have the notes that I take, so your vocabulary is written in my notes, which I give to you. And I make, for example, tongue twisters. If I notice you have issues with pronunciation, I'll make tongue twister files for you. I made some tongue twister files today, for example, for one of my clients who had troubles with the r sound and the u. It was difficult for her to do the u. For some people, it's really hard. So I made a tongue twister file for that, so that she could practice. If you have pronunciation issues, for example, it's good to practice a couple of minutes 2-3 times a day. So yeah, I'd love to have a bit more input about your situation, because it can be very, very personal. But the smallest coaching package that I have one-on-one is with 1 hour per week. And that's really the minimum time that you should be speaking French, minimum. And I totally always recommend to people that they speak French with people other than me. So I do have some clients who are super, super busy, and that's the only time they can spend speaking French. That's fine. I mean, I always adapt to the situation of how busy my client is. But if you can do more, it's good to do more. Connie says the French is my nemesis. Yeah, I hear you. Almost every single one of my American clients ends up with some tongue twisters because of the r. In the French Fluency Accelerator, we have a workshop about pronunciation that has some special tongue twister files, including one for the r. I might make one for YouTube as well, maybe, because it's something that people keep asking about. And probably I will also release the pronunciation workshop as a separate course, so that the people who need it can just get it, alone, so that you don't have to join the complete accelerator. But one thing you can do right now, which I think it's fun, but maybe it's fun for me because I'm French. It's the roaring exercise, or the roaring. So basically the r is here in the throat. And so you can practice just doing the sound before trying to put it in a word or in a sentence. Try doing just the with your throat like that. And when you can do it you can do it and it doesn't hurt, that's when you're ready to start doing it in a sentence. But if you can't do this, or if that hurts, it will be it will be very difficult for you to put it in a sentence or to practice it. So yeah, that's step one of the French song. It's just the roaring exercise. Just like pretend you're a lion and go like, try it. Tell me if that works. Scott is saying, so working in the healthcare system in ICU is overwhelming with COVID and being in lockdown. Yeah, I totally can imagine how your work, you in particular, Scott, has very overwhelming work right now. And that means it's a good time to cut yourself some slack with the French learning, because, yeah, maybe it's a time when your study could be put in the back burner a bit. I wouldn't like to say it this way, because it's not like you can give up, but it's good to have your French bath and try to have, you say you don't have the mental space for French other than listening to music or watching TV. The only French I speak is when I need to work with shops, etc. And that's fine. Like, I mean, what's the question is like, what is wrong with that? Because you're having some French, you can just listen to music and watch TV. When you need to speak French in the shop, you can. I can see how it's not so enjoyable to feel like maybe you're not making super great progress, or maybe you're not going to pass an exam next month or something, but you're not giving up. You're keeping your French bath. You're keeping your French top of mind. It's cool. Like everything is. Yeah, but like, what do you mean with putting it in the background? Because you mean putting French in the background, or putting your study on the back burner? I'm confused now. Maybe I've spoken for too long. All right. I would recommend still at least listening to music, because that probably doesn't hurt or doesn't take a lot of space, and it makes a big difference. It's basically like exercising. Maybe if you have been an athlete before, you've exercised a lot. When you quit entirely, your physical condition, like your physical shape, will decrease drastically really fast. That's just how the human body and brain works. Like what we don't use, we lose. But if you keep, doing a little bit of running, or maybe a little bit of weightlifting, even if it's just a couple of minutes, or like half an hour a week or something, it will be a lot easier than to catch up than if you give up entirely. So I definitely recommend try to listen to music or watch TV, but you can totally not study it actively. Like, for example, for me, for German, I'm not studying actively, even though I live in a German-speaking country. I really just do German when I have something to read. Like recently, there were some news from the government that I wanted to watch, so I watched them. But it was pretty passive, and actually, I didn't even get some of it, so I had to like look up on Google to find like what happened. There was a story that the Ministry of Work and Family has been accused of plagiarizing her master's thesis and PhD, and then she resigned because of that. And I listened to the announcement by the chancellor on YouTube, where I was hearing that she had resigned due to something related to her studies, and I was like, wait, what? Like the minister is quitting being a minister to go, and by minister I mean Secretary of State. So what, the Secretary of State is quitting in order to go back to her studies? Like what's going on? And then I looked up an article to like, oh no, okay, she is accused of plagiarizing her work, which I think it's worrying, and especially very worrying that it came up now. It's terrible timing. But yeah, just to say that I will only use German when I need it, or when there's something that I really want to find out. This door is broken. I have been speaking on. Think I've been having 4 phone calls and 1 in-person interactions with the people that have something to do with it. There probably will be more because no one has come to fix it yet. And that's the kind of things that, yeah, like I need to find out how it works, who deals with it, make appointments, find out who pays for that, and complex words that have to do with building management. Fortunately, I'm kind of used to it because I've been living in German-speaking country for 10 years. And yeah, it's living life in several languages mean being able to do what you need to do. That's all. That's just that. Like, can I go to a German conference about thermodynamics? I don't know. Maybe. I haven't tried. I have no interest. So it's really that. It's living the bilingual life, or trilingual, or however many languages. It's just being able to do what you need to do in every language. So we got more. I love music, so I do that every day, and TV is super easy. Yeah, so that's it. Like, I know that you have a tendency to be really hard on yourself, you in particular, Scott, and you don't have to do that. It's just a language. It's a language that you just need to keep around, because of course, if it's not around, nothing will happen. But other than that, it's fine. I mean, what would you really want to achieve with it other than what you're already doing? Like, do you have a super important project? And if you do like a project to, I don't know, go back to studying, or maybe even if you want to get a passport sometime, you might have to take an exam that might be a bit harder. But other than having a project like that, and also I would say that right now is not really a good time. We are living in time that's unprecedented, and with your work on top, it's just really, really difficult. So I encourage you to cut yourself some slack, definitely. Do we have any other questions or comments? Else I'm gonna dash because it's been 36 minutes, but it's nice to hang out with you guys. I always appreciate it. I think it was a good idea to switch from weekly YouTube videos to those lives. That's yeah, it's more like community focused. I personally I like it. Tell me what you think about it. I mean, if you're still here, I guess you like it. Otherwise, you'd have gone already. Facebook's telling me there are 5 people watching. So yeah, if any of you has any questions, now is a good time. Otherwise, I'm gonna go. Oh wow, if I become fluent, I could have worked much closer to home. So I guess you work in a hospital where they speak more English, and if you would speak better French, you could get a job in a hospital where they speak only French because you're in Quebec. Is that right? And if so, how would they know that you're fluent? Like, because what I would do, that would reduce the stress. Yeah, obviously. So what I would do if I were in your shoes, could maybe not right now, because your life is extremely stressful right now. So maybe when the COVID thing has subsided a bit, it would be a better time. But really, what I would do if I were you is try to find out exactly what it would take for you to have a job in a hospital close to you, which is French speaking, because maybe it's not as hard as you think. I know that I've watched your videos and you speak French pretty well. Maybe all it takes is a job interview in French and you could just take it. And also, it's the kind of things that if you fail once, it's not like it's gone forever. You can keep trying those kind of things. It's possible that your French is already good enough by their standards. That would depend on a lot of things. Actually, maybe right now is not that bad a time to try it because I hear that nurses are in high demand because of COVID. So yeah, I'd encourage you to find out exactly what it takes if they want you to take an exam or if they just want you to show up on the job interview and speak French. And then you can practice for that. That could be a good way to look at it because it's very easy to assume, like I was saying before, we're always estimating our level. And I know that your level in French is already pretty good because I've seen it. So for you in particular, I definitely know that your French is definitely probably not certainly not as bad as you think it is. And we are always underestimating our level. So the other person who sees it, if it's, for example, a job interview, the other person will probably assume that your French is better than you think it is. So yeah, it's like if I get to give you some homework, the homework would be to find out exactly what does it take for you to have a job in a hospital that's close to your place, and then you can make a plan. Connie is saying, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Well, yeah, it's almost 8 p.m. here. So just, I guess I'm going to relax. I'm going to go to my bedroom where it's not that cold and get a bath probably. And oh my God, I just really look forward to the end of this mess here. All right. If there's no other question or comment, I'm going to go. That was 40 minutes. That was super cool. Thank you guys for being here with me. I look forward to seeing you or some of you again next Monday. Yeah, again, I guess probably everybody is gone from the replay already, but if you're still here and still watching, please check out my French transformation program, which is my one-on-one coaching program, because I have 2 or 3 spots right now, depending on which of the tiers gets chosen by the people who join. So now is a good time to check that out. Scott is saying, I hope the door gets fixed soon. Yes, I have an appointment on Wednesday. I can't wait. All right, thank you guys. That was so cool hanging out with you. I'm going to dash now. Thank you, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.